stranger's big size took me front, back, mouth, but his secret destroyed me. She stood frozen at the doorway, her heart cracking into a million shards as she watched the man she once trusted, once loved, kissing another woman in their bed. The same bed where he had whispered promises, shared laughter, and pretended to build a life with her. The betrayal sank in like poison. Her breath hitched, and before the tears could fall, she walked away, not just from the room but from that life. She didn't scream, didn't beg. She simply vanished. What followed were nights filled with silence, sheets that no longer smelled like love, and a heart that refused to heal. She wandered through emotions, rage, sorrow, emptiness, until one day, standing under the dim lights of a courthouse, she did something she never imagined. She married a stranger. There was no fairy tale build-up, no romance, just an agreement, signed papers, and a quiet ceremony with 2 witnesses and no flowers. The man was calm, composed, mysterious. She didn't ask questions. She didn't care who he was. She just wanted to disappear into someone else's name, someone else's life, and maybe start over. What she didn't know was that the man she married wasn't just anyone. He was one of the richest, most powerful men in the world, hiding in plain sight, looking for something more than wealth. And she, unknowingly, had just become everything he ever wanted. The first night they shared a bed. Silence lay heavy between them. She turned away from him, unsure of his intentions, her body still scarred with the memory of betrayal. But he didn't force anything. He simply lay beside her, keeping a respectful distance. Days passed, and slowly, like melting ice, the wall between them started to crack. She noticed how he would bring her coffee just the way she liked it. How he listened when she spoke, even when her voice was low and broken. How his eyes didn't wander but held her gaze with a quiet warmth. And then one night it happened. They were sitting in the living room, a soft playlist humming in the background. The wine made her lips looser, her body warmer, and when she looked at him, there was no pretense, just raw honesty. "Do you want me?" she asked, voice trembling. He moved closer, brushing her hair from her face. "Not unless you want me to," he whispered, and that made her heart thud. Slowly, tenderly, his lips found hers, not like the man who betrayed her, but like a man discovering a treasure he never expected. Their kiss deepened, hungry and slow, and her fingers curled around his shirt as her breath caught between moans. His hands explored her gently at first, trailing from her neck down to her waist, and then further, until her body arched into his touch. There was heat in the way he kissed her shoulders, in how his hands gripped her thighs, spreading her apart, making her gasp. He whispered things into her ear, soft, sexy things that made her breathless. His voice was deep, commanding, arousing. And when he finally entered her, she gasped in shock. He was big, impossibly big. The stretch burned, it hurt, but it also made her crave more. Every thrust was deep, slow, powerful, making her toes curl and her back arch. Her moans filled the room, tangled in his name, her nails scratching down his back as he moved with a rhythm that felt like both punishment and worship. And yet, through the pleasure, through the pain, she began to feel something else. Connection. She started falling not into lust, but into something more dangerous. Affection. Mornings were no longer cold. Nights were no longer lonely. They talked, laughed, kissed under soft lighting, and touched under the blankets like lovers reborn. He never told her about his money, his power, or his empire. She thought he was just a quiet man who preferred simplicity. She loved that about him. But the truth was boiling under the surface, waiting to rise. And when it did, it wouldn't just shock her. It would break everything she thought she knew. One afternoon, while he was away on a supposed business errand, she decided to clean up the study, something she had never stepped foot in before. The room smelled of cologne, leather, and something expensive. As she dusted the bookshelf, a stack of folders slipped and fell, scattering across the floor. She reached down to gather them, but what caught her eye made her pause. There among the papers were documents with signatures, business seals, and bank statements, numbers so large they didn't even look real. Her heart skipped. She flipped through the pages, confusion growing. Then she saw the magazines neatly stacked in a drawer. All with him on the cover. World's most powerful billionaire, one said. The hidden king of fortune, another. Couldn't be. Her chest tightened. The man she'd slept beside, cried beside, trusted, wasn't just a stranger. He was a mogul. King in disguise. He returned home to find her waiting, her expression unreadable. She held the papers loosely in her hand, the betrayal fresh all over again. You lied, she whispered, her voice cracking. He didn't deny it. I never wanted you to love me for my money, he said. I needed someone real. Someone broken enough to understand me. But his truth didn't soothe her. It reopened wounds. You used me, she snapped. Just like he did. The tension was thick, electric, and when he reached for her, she pulled back. But later that night, as she lay in bed alone, her mind kept replaying his words, his actions, and most of all, his touch. He had never treated her like a possession. He had treated her like a queen. Weeks passed in silence. They shared a roof but not a bed. Then one night he came home bruised. Something about a business deal turned sour. He collapsed into a chair, exhausted and bleeding. Her instinct took over. She ran to him, cleaned his wounds, held his head against her chest. And in that moment something shifted again. Their eyes locked. She kissed him, not out of pity but passion. That night they didn't just have sex, they made love. It was rough and desperate, full of whispered apologies and breathless moans. His body was all over her. His lips on her neck, his tongue between her legs. His hands gripping her hips as he slammed into her, deeper and harder than before. She cried out his name, her back arched, her legs wrapped around his waist, begging for more. His voice in her ear was deep, hungry, and raw. You're mine now, he whispered. Every inch of you. She shivered under him, the pain mixing with unbearable pleasure. Her skin burned with every touch. Her heart pounded with every thrust. She felt like she was being devoured. It was the kind of sex that left marks, that made her legs shake for hours after, that made her scream until her voice broke. But in the aftermath, when he held her close and kissed her temple, it was soft again. I'm sorry, he murmured, for not telling you everything. She closed her eyes and let herself believe him. For the first time she felt seen, wanted, respected. But happiness never stays long for people like her. Something still felt off. One night, she heard his phone buzz repeatedly while he was in the shower. She picked it up. Her heart dropped. There were messages, from a woman. Explicit ones. Pictures. Voice notes. I miss your touch. When will she be gone so I can have you back? Her vision blurred with tears. Her fingers trembled. The man she had started to love, the man who had kissed away her pain, was hiding something again. He came out of the bathroom to find her standing there, the phone in her hand, rage and hurt written across her face. Is this your truth too? She hissed. He froze. Then slowly his expression changed, not to guilt but something else, something darker. It's not what it looks like, he began, but she didn't want to hear it. She screamed, shoved him, and stormed out of the house. Her mind raced as memories flooded back. Memories of betrayal, heartbreak, cheating. Was she cursed to be lied to forever? She ran through the city night, tears streaming, heart shattering all over again. The cold air bit her skin, but she barely felt it. Betrayal had become too familiar, like a shadow that followed her no matter how far she ran. She checked into a hotel, threw her phone across the room, and collapsed onto the bed, sobbing into the pillow. How could she have fallen again? Trusted again? Loved again? The pain inside her chest was too much. Her body ached, not from sex this time but from heartbreak. She didn't eat for days. Didn't sleep. Just lay there, replaying every moment in her mind. Every kiss, every touch, every whispered word that now felt like a lie. Then one morning there was a knock on the hotel door. She opened it hesitantly. And there he was. Not in a suit. Not in control. But broken, raw, and desperate. His eyes were bloodshot. His hands trembling. He walked in silently, dropped to his knees and held up his phone. "Listen," he said. He played the last voice note from the woman, the one she hadn't heard. It wasn't meant for him. It was blackmail. "If you don't come back to me, I'll destroy her. I know who she is. I'll send everything to the media. Mine. Always were." Her blood ran cold. He looked up at her. "I've been protecting you," he said. "She was part of my past. I wanted to tell you. But I couldn't risk losing you. I'm sorry." The truth hit her like a wave. She had jumped to conclusions. Her own fear had blinded her. Tears welled in her eyes. He reached for her, and this time she didn't pull away. They kissed. Hard, messy, full of pain and forgiveness. And then their clothes were gone, their bodies tangled on the hotel bed. He spread her thighs and tasted her slowly, making her moan, making her melt. She gasped as he teased her with his tongue. His fingers curling inside her, stroking deep. When he finally slid into her, her breath caught. The pain returned, but it was sweet, addictive, needed. He stretched her again, just like the first time, and she welcomed the burn, welcomed the ache. His thrusts were rough, passionate, filled with desperation. "You're mine," he whispered, kissing her ear, biting her shoulder. "I'll never let you go again." She clawed at his back, begging for more, trembling under him. The sex was hot, sweaty, overwhelming. Her screams echoed off the walls. His body moved like it belonged to her. Their souls collided. Their hearts beat in rhythm. It was more than just pleasure. It was war and peace, fire and healing. And when they both came undone together, their bodies shaking, they knew there was no going back. They returned home together. Stronger. Closer. He introduced her, finally, to his world. Lavish parties. $1 billion deals. Staff who bowed in her presence. She was no longer a broken woman. She was a queen, respected, adored. Yet she remained humble, grounded, never forgetting where she came from. And every night in their bedroom, he reminded her with his mouth, his tongue, his fingers and his sighs, just how much he needed her. Every moan she let out, every hot whisper she gave him, every sexy touch he laid on her skin, it was all theirs. But then came the twist. Months later she received a letter. Handwritten. From the woman who had blackmailed him. It wasn't a threat. It was a confession. "You don't know the real secret," it said. "He didn't just marry you for love. He married you because you were chosen. Chosen by his dying father's will. You were an arrangement. His ticket to inherit everything. And he agreed. Until he fell in love with you for real." Her hands shook as she finished reading. Everything around her spun. He had loved her. But it had started as a lie. She didn't confront him. Not yet. That night they made love again, long, deep, passionate. His lips were on every part of her. Her legs wrapped around his waist. Her body trembled as he filled her, again and again, whispering how much he loved her. But inside she was screaming. The next morning she was gone. No note. No goodbye. But she didn't run away out of hate. She ran to find herself. She needed to heal again. Alone. And the final twist. Months later a newspaper headline read, "Billionaire steps down from empire, gives everything to anonymous woman he calls his only truth." And somewhere in a quiet town, holding the child they made together, she smiled for the first time, because finally she wasn't running anymore. She was free, loved, and unforgettable.